Jason could not believe his luck. He had been accepted to the Intergalactic University, a place where humans and aliens from every corner of the galaxy came together to study and learn. It was exciting, new, and full of unknown adventures. But nothing surprised him more than meeting his new roommate, Zira. Zira was not human. She stood tall, covered in shimmering green scales, her eyes bright and curious. She wore colorful robes and always carried a small device that hummed softly in her hands. At first, Jason was nervous. He had never lived with someone from another planet before. Zira, too, seemed unsure. She spoke quietly, choosing her words carefully, as if afraid to say the wrong thing. They spent their first week together in awkward silence. Jason tried to make conversation, asking about Zira's home and her family. Zira answered politely, but her mind seemed far away. Sometimes Jason caught her staring out the window at the night sky, her thoughts drifting to some distant world. One evening, as Jason was unpacking his books, Zira spoke up. "Jason, I must warn you. Pairing time is coming soon for my people. It is difficult. You may wish to stay away." Jason had read about K-Shari pairing time. It was a season when Zira's people felt strong instincts and emotions. Some said it was wild and dangerous, but others said it was beautiful. He wanted to understand, but Zira's words made him worry. Was she afraid of hurting him? Or was she afraid of herself? The next day, Zira seemed even more distant. She avoided eye contact and spent most of her time in her side of the room, working on her studies or talking quietly into her communicator. Jason felt a sting of sadness. He wanted to be friends with Zira, to help her feel at home. But the more he tried, the further away she seemed. It reminded Jason of something he had felt before. Back on Earth, his best friend had moved away to another city. At first, they messaged every day, but slowly, the messages became less frequent. The calls stopped. Jason still missed his friend, but he didn't know how to bridge the distance between them. Now, with Zira, he felt that same ache of loneliness, even though she was just a few steps away. One night, Jason sat on his bed, thinking about what he could do. He didn't want to lose another friend. He looked at Zira, who was staring at a small, glowing crystal in her hand. Her eyes looked sad, almost like she was homesick. Jason took a deep breath and spoke. "Zira, I know pairing time is hard for you, but I want to help. I don't want you to feel alone." His voice trembled, but he meant every word. Zira looked up, surprised. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Thank you, Jason. It is not easy to talk about. Most people are afraid of K-Shari during this time, but I don't want to be alone either." For the first time, Jason saw a glimpse of hope in Zira's eyes. Maybe, he thought, it was possible to reach across the distance between them, alien or human, fear or hope. Maybe, just maybe, he could do something no human had ever done before. The next morning, the university sounded an alarm. Pairing time had begun. Zira's scales shimmered with nervous energy. She asked Jason to help her lock the windows and secure the door. Jason followed her instructions, feeling a strange mix of fear and excitement. This was it, the moment he could prove himself as a friend, and maybe something more. As the day went on, Jason noticed that Zira was struggling. Her hands shook slightly, and she spoke less and less. The air in the room grew heavy with tension. Jason wanted to help, but he didn't know how. He remembered the times he had felt alone, wishing someone would just sit with him, say nothing, and simply be there. So Jason did just that. He sat next to Zira, silent but present. He offered her a cup of tea, the way his mother had done for him when he was sad. He played soft music, hoping it would calm her nerves. He didn't try to solve her problems, he just stayed by her side. Little by little, Zira seemed to relax. She smiled at Jason, a small, grateful smile that made his heart feel lighter. For the first time, she told him about her family, her home planet, and the traditions of pairing time. She explained how it was not just a time of wild emotion, but a time to form deep bonds of trust and friendship. Jason listened carefully, asking questions and sharing stories from Earth. They laughed about the silly things humans did, and Zira taught Jason a few Keshari words. The distance between them grew smaller with every word, every shared moment. As night fell, Jason realized something important. He didn't have to be perfect. He didn't need to know all the answers. What mattered was that he tried, that he cared enough to reach out even when it was hard. That was what made humans. Special their hope, their courage, their stubborn desire to connect, no matter the odds. The next day, Zira was different. She stood taller, her eyes brighter. She thanked Jason for staying, for not running away. Jason grinned, feeling a warmth in his chest. He knew the days ahead would not be easy, but he was ready. He would face pairing time with Zira, side by side, as friends. And maybe, just maybe, they would both discover something new about themselves and about each other. Asterisk, the alarm blared early in the morning, echoing through the metal halls of the intergalactic university. Jason woke with a start, heart racing. On the wall, red lights flashed with the words, "Pairing Time Lockdown." It was finally happening. Zira was already awake, sitting cross-legged on her bed. Her scales glowed softly in the dim light. She didn't look at Jason, just stared at the door, as if waiting for something or someone. Jason thought back to the night before, when he and Zira had finally talked. For the first time, he had felt hope. But as pairing time began, Jason felt the old familiar distance creeping in. Zira seemed even farther away than before. They were in the same room, but it was like a wall stood between them. Outside, strange sounds filled the air. There were deep, echoing roars and thudding footsteps. Jason shivered. He remembered Zira's warning. It might get complicated. He wondered what was really happening outside their door. Zira finally spoke, her voice quiet and tight. "Jason, please stay close to me. My people, we change during this time. Emotions grow strong. Sometimes we don't even recognize our own thoughts. It is hard to control." Jason wanted to help, but he didn't know how. He remembered the pain he felt when his friend moved away, the ache in his chest every time he checked his phone and saw no new messages. He remembered wanting to reach out, but not knowing what to say. Now, looking at Zira, he saw the same sadness, the same fear of being alone. He sat down next to her, careful to give her space. "I'm here," he said softly. "We'll get through this together." Zira nodded, but her eyes stayed on the door. The sounds outside grew louder, laughing, shouting, and what sounded like singing in a language Jason couldn't understand. "Some Keshari lose themselves during pairing time," Zira explained. "It is not safe to go out. We must stay inside together." Hours passed slowly. Jason tried to study, but he couldn't concentrate. Zira paced the room, restless, her tail flicking back and forth. Jason watched her, wishing he could do more. He wanted to ask about her family, about her home, but he didn't want to upset her. Finally, he found his courage. "Zira," he said, "do you miss your home?" Zira stopped pacing and looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Yes, very much. My family is far away. During pairing time, we usually come together. We share stories, we comfort each other. But this year, I am alone." Jason nodded, understanding. "My best friend moved away," he said. "At first, we talked every day. But then, less and less. Now, sometimes I wonder if I should even send a message. I don't want to be annoying, you know." Zira smiled, just a little. "It is hard, feeling so far apart from someone you care about." Jason felt a rush of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he could make a difference. "Do you want to talk about your family?" he asked. "Or maybe show me some pictures?" Zira hesitated, then reached for her small, humming device. She pressed a button, and images floated in. The air her home planet, with its twin suns and tall, spiny trees. Her family, all with the same bright eyes and shimmering scales. They looked happy, arms wrapped around each other. Jason smiled. "They look nice. I bet they're proud of you." Zira's eyes filled with tears. "I hope so. Sometimes I feel like I don't belong anywhere. Not here, not at home." Jason's heart ached. He knew that feeling, the sense of being lost, of not fitting in. "I think everyone feels that way sometimes," he said. "But you're not alone, Zira. I'm here with you." Something shifted between them. The distance that had seemed so wide before now felt a little smaller. Zira sat down next to Jason, closer than ever before. For a moment, they just sat in silence, listening to the sounds outside. Suddenly, there was a loud bang on the door. Jason jumped. Zira's eyes widened in fear. "Stay back," she whispered. The door shook as someone or something pounded on it, shouting in a guttural Keshari language. Jason's heart hammered in his chest. He looked at Zira, seeing the fear in her eyes. He knew he had to be brave, not just for himself, but for her. He stood up and pressed his hands against the door. "Go away," he shouted, his voice shaking but strong. "We're fine in here." The banging stopped. For a long moment, there was silence. Then footsteps faded away down the hall. Jason let out a long breath. Zira looked at him, awe in her eyes. You protected me," she said softly. Jason grinned, feeling a surge of pride. "That's what friends do," he replied. "We look out for each other." For the rest of the day, they stayed close. Jason told Zira stories about Earthabout. The days inside the locked dorm passed slowly for Jason and Zira. Outside, the sounds of pairing time never stopped. Every few hours, someone would pound on their door or shout in the hallways. Sometimes the walls shook with the force of wild. Keshari running past. Jason learned to stay calm, but every noise made his heart beat faster. Zira was changing. Jason noticed it first in her eyes. They grew sharper, more alert. She moved differently, her steps quieter and quicker. She started to growl softly when someone came too close to their door. Even when Jason spoke, she sometimes flinched or stared at him as if she was trying to remember who he was. Jason started to feel alone again. Zira was right beside him, but it felt like she was moving farther away every day. He wanted to help her, but he didn't know how. He thought about his friend back on Earth, the one who moved away. Jason had sent messages for weeks, but the replies had grown shorter and slower. Finally, they had stopped altogether. Jason didn't know if his friend remembered him at all. Now, watching Zira, Jason felt the same sadness. He wondered if he was losing another friend. He wished he could reach across the distance between them, but Zira seemed trapped in her own mind. One afternoon, Jason tried to break the silence. "Do you want to play a game?" he asked, holding up a deck of cards. Zira looked at him, confused. "A game?" she repeated, as if she had forgotten a word. "Yeah," Jason said, trying to smile. "It's called Go Fish. It's easy. I'll teach you." Zira sat down across from him, her movements stiff. Jason dealt the cards and explained the rules. They played in silence at first, but slowly Zira relaxed. She started to smile when she won a round, and Jason cheered when he finally beat her. For a few moments, the tension faded. Jason felt hope again. Maybe if he kept trying, he could bring Zira back to herself. Maybe he could prove that humans were good friends, even in the hardest times. Later that night, as Jason was getting ready for bed, Zira began to pace. Her tail lashed the air, and she muttered to herself in her own language. Jason watched her, worried. "Zira, are you okay?" he asked gently. She stopped and turned to him, her eyes full of fear and anger. "I do not know who I am," she said softly. "Pairing time makes me different. I am afraid I will hurt you." Jason swallowed. He wanted to say something comforting, but the words wouldn't come. He remembered how helpless he had felt when his friend back home stopped answering his calls. He remembered the pain of being left behind, but then he remembered something else, something his mother had told him once. When you feel lost, you have to keep reaching out, even if it's hard, even if you don't know what will happen. Jason took a deep breath. "Zira, I'm not leaving. No matter what happens, I'll stay with you. You're not alone." Zira blinked, surprised. For a moment, she looked like herself again. "Why do you care so much?" she asked quietly. Jason shrugged. "Because that's what humans do. We care. We try, even when it's scary. We don't give up on our friends." Outside, the noises grew louder. Someone was banging on the door again, harder than before. Zira snarled and moved to stand in front of Jason, her body tense and ready to fight. Suddenly, the door shook violently. The lock rattled. Jason's heart raced. He reached for a chair and wedged it under the handle, just like Zira had shown him. "Stay back." Zira hissed. Jason stood right behind her, fear and determination mixing inside him. He knew he couldn't fight like a Keshari, but he could stand by his friend Dot. After a long minute, the banging stopped. Whoever was outside gave up. Zira slumped to the floor, exhausted. Jason knelt beside her. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're braver than most Keshari I know." Jason smiled, but inside he still felt that ache of distance. Zira was here, but she was also far away, trapped by her own instincts. As the night wore on, Jason couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, thinking about his old friend. He wondered if he should send one more message, just to say hello. Maybe his friend was lonely too. Maybe they both needed someone to reach out. He remembered how hard it was for Zira to talk about her family, how much it meant when she shared her memories. Maybe all anyone needed was a little hope, a sign that someone cared. The next morning, Jason woke to find Zira sitting quietly at the window. She looked tired, but her eyes were calm. "Thank you for staying," she said softly. "It is hard to trust anyone during pairing time, but you make it easier." Jason grinned. "That's what friends are for. Besides, you make a great go-fish partner." Zira laughed, a real joyful sound. For the first time in days, Jason felt the distance between them shrink. It wasn't gone yet, but it was smaller. He knew things wouldn't be easy. Pairing time was still dangerous, and Zira still struggled with her instincts. But Jason was determined to keep trying. He sent a message to his old friend that afternoon. Just a simple, "Hey, I miss you. Hope you're okay." He didn't know if he would get a reply, but it felt good to try. Zira watched him, her eyes full of understanding. "Maybe one day I can go home again," she said. "Maybe I can show you my world," Jason smiled. "I'd like that." As the sun set, Jason felt hope growing in his heart. The distance between friends on different planets, or right across, the room could always be crossed, as long as someone was willing to try. Asin woke in the middle of the night to a strange metallic sound. At first, he thought he was dreaming. Then he heard it again, a scraping, almost like claws on metal. He sat up quickly, heart pounding. Zira was already awake, crouched low and alert. Her scales shimmered in the dim light. She held a small tool in her hand, ready to defend them. Jason glanced at the door. It was still locked, but something was wrong. "Did you hear that?" Jason whispered. Zira nodded, lips pressed tight. stay close. Someone is in the vents. Jason's fear grew. He remembered how wild pairing time had become. The Kaishari in the hallways were louder and more aggressive every night. Now, someone was trying to get inside their room. Suddenly, the vent above their beds rattled. A shadow moved behind the metal grate. Jason froze, unsure what to do. Zira pulled him back, her eyes wide with fear. The grate popped open with a loud clang. Out tumbled a Kaishari, bigger than Zira, with dark blue scales and wild yellow eyes. The intruder snarled, baring sharp teeth. "Stay away from her," Jason shouted, grabbing the nearest thing he could find, a heavy book. He held it out like a shield, shaking but determined. The intruder ignored him, eyes locked on Zira. "Pairing time," the creature hissed in a strange, broken common tongue. "You must bond. You must choose." Zira stood tall, her voice steady. Despite her shaking hands, "No, you have no right to be here. Leave us alone." Jason felt helpless. He wanted to help Zira, but he was just a human, with no claws or scales. Still, he remembered what he had learned. Humans don't give up on friends. They try, even when it's hard. He took a deep breath and thought fast. He noticed the intruder's tail was near an electric outlet. Remembering a lesson from science class, Jason grabbed a metal fork from their supply kit. He whispered to Zira, "Distract him. I have an idea." Zira nodded, understanding. She hissed and waved her arms, drawing the intruder's attention. "You want a challenge? Then face me." The intruder lunged at Zira, furious. In that moment, Jason darted forward and slid the fork into the outlet, then quickly yanked it out. Sparks flew, startling the intruder and making the lights flicker. Kaishari intruder roared, confused by the sudden light and noise. Zira used the distraction to swipe at the intruder's tail, knocking him off balance. The intruder stumbled backward, dazed by the shock and surprise. "Now, Jason." Zira shouted. Jason grabbed a heavy blanket and threw it over the intruder's head. Together, he and Zira pushed the confused Kaishari back toward the vent. With a mighty shove, they forced him out and slammed the grate shut. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then they both collapsed on the floor, breathing hard. Jason looked at Zira, his hands shaking. "Are you okay?" he asked. Zira nodded, her eyes wide but grateful. "You saved us," she said softly. "You didn't run, you stayed." Jason smiled, relief flooding through him. "I told you I'm not leaving. We're in this together." For the first time, Zira reached out and took Jason's hand. Her grip was warm and strong. "Thank you," she whispered. "I was so scared. I thought I'd lose myself or lose you." Jason squeezed her hand. "You're not alone. I know what it's like to feel far away from someone you care about. But we can still reach each other. We just have to try." Zira looked at him, her eyes shining with hope. "When this is over, I want to visit my family. Maybe you can come with." Jason's heart felt lighter than it had in weeks. "I'd like that," he said. The rest of the night passed slowly. Jason couldn't sleep, afraid another intruder might come. But Zira stayed close, watching over him as he drifted in and out. Of dreams. In the morning, Zira turned on her communicator and sent a message to her family. "I miss you," she wrote in her language. "I hope you are safe. I have a friend here. He is brave and kind." As she finished, Jason checked his own messages. To his surprise, his old friend had replied. Just a simple, "Hey, I miss you too. Maybe we can talk soon?" Jason's eyes filled with tears. Even though his friend was far away, the message made him feel close again. He realized that sometimes all it took was one small act, one word, one message to reconnect. He showed. Zira the message. She smiled, understanding the hope it brought. See? The distance isn't so big after all. That day, Jason and Zira worked together. After the night of the intruder, Jason and Zira felt a little safer. They had survived something scary together. The bond between them grew stronger, but things were still not easy. Pairing time was reaching its peak. The sounds outside grew louder. Every day, sometimes shaking the walls. Zira's instincts seemed stronger too. She was quieter now, sometimes staring at nothing for long minutes, lost in thought. Jason noticed she was also more protective, always checking the locks, watching the window, and listening for danger. But even as they grew closer, Jason felt a strange kind of distance again. It was not the distance of fear, but something softer, deeper. He remembered the feeling when his best friend had moved away, how he had wanted to reach out, but didn't know what to say. Now, he wanted to say something important to Zira, but he was afraid. What if she didn't feel the same? What if she just wanted to get through pairing time and go home? One afternoon, the sky outside their window was turning orange and gold. Zira sat by the glass, watching the sunset. Jason sat on his bed, holding his old phone. He thought about his friend on Earth, and how finally sending a message had made him feel better. Maybe, he thought, it was time to do the same with Zira. He cleared his throat. Zira, can I ask you something? Zira turned, her bright eyes full of light. Yes, Jason? He looked down, fidgeting with his phone. Do you ever feel scared? Not just of pairing time, but of other things? Like scared of losing people? Zira was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. Yes, I am afraid all the time. Back home, I was afraid I would not be strong enough for my family. Here, I am afraid I will never belong. And with you, I am afraid I will lose you somehow. Jason's heart beat faster. He realized Zira felt the same way he did. He took a deep breath. I was afraid too. When my friend moved away, I thought I'd never have a friend like that again. Then I met you. Even if you're different, even if pairing. Time is hard. I'm glad you're here. Zira smiled, a soft, warm smile. Thank you, Jason. You are a good friend. Better than many Kaishari I know. Jason hesitated. He wanted to say more, but words were hard. He wished there was a simple way to show how much he cared. Suddenly, Zira stood and walked over to him. She sat beside him, their shoulders almost touching. Jason could feel the heat from her scales. There is something I want to tell you too, Zira said quietly. When the intruder came, I was not just afraid for myself. I was afraid for you. I did not want to lose you. I did not want to be alone again. Jason nodded, understanding. Me too. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the distant sounds outside. It was peaceful inside their room. For the first time, Jason thought maybe the distance between them could disappear completely. Zira, he said softly, when pairing time is over, do you think we can still be friends? Maybe even visit each other's families? Zira's eyes grew wide with hope. I would like that very much. I want you to see my home, my world, and I want to see yours. Jason smiled. Deal. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The university's warning system spoke in several languages. Attention! Pairing time has reached maximum intensity. All students should remain in their rooms. Do not open your doors for any reason. Zira looked worried. This is the hardest part. Many Kaishari lose themselves completely. Some forget who they are. Some even forget their friends. Jason reached for her hand. I won't let you forget. I promise. Zira squeezed his hand, her claws gentle. If I change, if I say something hurtful, please remember the real me. Please help me come back. Jason nodded. I will. That night, Zira tossed and turned. Sometimes she muttered in her sleep, speaking her own language. Jason stayed awake, watching over her, ready to help if she needed him. He thought about his old friend on Earth. He had been afraid to reach out for so long, but now he knew it was worth it. Sometimes, even if you didn't know what to say, it was better to try. He sent another message, this time a little longer. I hope you're okay. Things are tough here, but I made a new friend. She's amazing. I wish you could meet her. In the early morning, Zira woke, breathing hard. She looked lost, her eyes wild. Jason? She whispered, as if she wasn't sure who he was. Spoke softly, repeating the stories they'd shared, singing the Keshari song she taught him, and telling her how much she mattered to him. Slowly, Zira's eyes cleared. She smiled weakly. You brought me back, she whispered. Jason grinned, wiping a tear from his eye. Of course, I promised you I would. As the sun rose, the worst of pairing time passed. The noise outside began to fade. Zira leaned against Jason, tired but safe. Thank you, she said. You helped me remember who I am. You helped me feel hope. Jason squeezed her hand. That's what humans do. We help each other, no matter what. He knew there would still be hard days ahead times when Zira felt far away, or when old. Friends didn't answer messages. But he also knew that hope was stronger than fear, and that he would never stop trying to reach the people he cared about as the light grew brighter. Jason and Zira faced the new day together, not just as friends, but as something even more a team, a pair, ready to bridge any distance that came between them. The sun was rising, and the halls of the intergalactic university were almost quiet. Pairing time was nearly over, but Jason and Zira knew the most dangerous moment was still to come. The university's alarm had warned them. Maximum intensity. Remain inside. Do not open your door for any reason. Jason and Zira sat together on the floor, backs against the wall. Zira looked tired, her scales duller than usual. She held Jason's hand tightly, as if she was afraid to let go. Jason could feel the distance between them, not in steps or miles, but in fear. He remembered how hard it was when his friend on Earth moved away. He remembered being afraid to reach out, not knowing if his friend would answer. With Zira, he never wanted that distance to grow again. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed. Through the hallway, the door shook on its hinges. Jason jumped up, heart pounding. Zira stood too, her body tense and ready. Someone or something was trying to break in. Jason looked around the room, searching for anything they could use to protect themselves. He grabbed a metal chair and pushed it against the door. Zira stood next to him, claws ready. There was a voice outside, shouting in Keshari. It sounded wild and desperate. More voices joined in, louder and angrier. They're coming, Zira whispered. They want to force their way in. They think pairing time means they can take whatever they want. Jason felt fear, but he also felt determination. He would not let Zira face this alone. He thought of all the times he had wanted to reconnect with his old friend and had been too scared. This time he would be brave. He turned to Zira. We can do this, together. Zira nodded, her eyes shining with trust. Together. The door burst open with a crash. Several Keshari pushed inside, their eyes wild with pairing time energy. Jason stood in front of Zira, holding the chair like a shield. Stay back, he shouted. His voice shook, but he stood firm. The Keshari leader, bigger and stronger than the others, stepped forward. He growled at Zira. Ignoring Jason, Zira spoke in her own language, her voice strong. Jason couldn't understand the words, but he could hear the courage in her voice. The leader snarled and moved closer. Jason knew he had to do something, or they would both be in danger. He remembered an old trick from a science video. Sound can hurt ears if it's loud enough. Quickly, he grabbed Zira's music device and turned the volume to maximum. He pressed play, and a loud, high-pitched song filled the room. The Keshari covered their ears, hissing in pain. The leader stumbled back, confused and angry. "Now!" Jason yelled. Zira leaped forward, using a Keshari fighting move she had taught Jason. Together, they pushed the intruders back toward the door. Jason swung the chair, keeping the others away. Zira blocked the leader, her eyes full of fire. Finally, the Keshari gave up. They backed out of the room, slamming the door behind them. Jason quickly locked it and pushed the chair back into. Placed out the room was a mess. Jason and Zira were breathing hard, but they were safe. Jason's hands shook, but he felt proud. He had faced his fear and protected his friend. Zira turned to him, her eyes shining with tears. "You did it. You saved us." Jason shook his head. "We did it." Together, Zira hugged him tightly. "Thank you, Jason. I was so scared. I thought I would lose myself, or lose you. But you stayed." Jason hugged her back. "I promised I would. That's what friends do." They sat together on the floor, holding on to each other. Jason remembered the feeling of being far away from someone he cared about. He remembered the sadness and the fear. But now he felt hope. He knew that even when things were hard, even when people seemed far away, it was always worth it to try and reach them. Hours passed. The noise outside slowly faded. The university's alarm finally spoke again. "Pairing time is over. You may unlock your doors." Zira slumped against the wall, exhausted but smiling. "It's finished," she said softly. "We made it." Jason looked around at the mess, then at Zira. "We really did." He checked his messages and saw a new reply from his friend on Earth. "I'm glad you wrote. I miss our talks. Let's call soon." Jason smiled, a warm feeling in his chest. He had almost given up, but reaching out had brought his friend closer. Again, Zira stood and walked to the window. She opened it, letting in fresh air. The sky was bright blue, and the campus was peaceful again. "Thank you, Jason," she said. "You showed me what hope looks like. Even when I felt lost,